All right, well, we are at 7 o'clock, and I think we ought to probably get the ball rolling.
Yep.
So let's call the meeting to order and get started. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we're just missing Tom as far as the board goes. So, okay, let's begin with our agenda review. So you guys have hopefully had a chance to look at it, and of course, at this point, would accept a motion to proceed with the agenda as published.
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
So moved. Thank you.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, Debbie, please.
Okay, Shelley,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
and Irv. Irv, thumbs up, thumbs down?
Yes.
Thank you, all in favor.
All right. Well, first on the agenda is the music presentation. And apologies to the board. I did miss the fact that that wasn't mentioned in Scott's update. So I would have otherwise mentioned, given you kind of a summary of what was going on. But anyway, welcome to that part of the agenda. And Scott, I'll let you take it away.
Well, thanks, Jonathan. And I want to welcome our music team, our Silver Falls School District music team. And they're here with us tonight. And we have Frank, Cole, Jean, Tyler, Sasana. They are going to do a little bit of presenting tonight, but I wanted to first thank them. We've been working with the music team, fairly frequently this year, touching base and talking about the direction of music in the district and also where we currently are as a district. And they've worked really hard on a presentation, which tonight they'll present that to you. We got a sneak peek during our cabinet meeting last Monday. They did a terrific job. And I just first wanted to start out by thanking them for all the time and energy they put into that. They've really spent a lot of time preparing. And the focus of the presentation tonight is where we are right now in terms of what students are learning, the type of teaching that is going on, and the focus of music as far as each one of our team members is concerned. Each one teaches at a different level. After their presentation, kind of think of this as a sort of a principal presentation, although this one is programmatic. At work sessions coming up in the future, we'll be doing different departments and programs that are focused, of course, on teaching and learning as a district. That will start to become a staple at our work sessions. I think it's a perfect time for that. After they're done with their presentation, we'll then move into the work that we've done this year to map out the art standards this year, not just for music, but for performing arts, visual arts, and so on. Because we first have to start with a firm foundation to answer the key question of teaching and learning, and that is, what do we expect students to learn? And the second question, of course, is how will we know when they learned it? So, and that all comes from the mapping of standards. And so we'll share some of that with you. Leslie Roach will lead us through that from a Department of Teaching and Learning lens. And then what I want to talk to you about a little bit is my thinking about work going into the summer with our board around the arts resolution, because we've had a lot of disruption over the past year or so, and we need to ground ourselves in what it is that the resolution is calling for. And I'd really like to have the board's direction and input on how you would like that to look. So that's coming down the road. But for the purposes of tonight, let's get right into the best part, and that's to hear from our music team. And I think, Sasana, can I turn it over to you first, if I remember correctly?
I'll start the presentation. I don't.
Okay. Well,
I
welcome
have never
everyone.
presented on Zoom.
That's okay. Welcome.
So I have a screen ready to go.
Okay.
This is exciting.
That's okay. So if you got a screen share at the bottom in green.
Oh, there it is. Sorry.
That's
Sorry.
okay. Perfectly okay.
All right.
There we go. Perfect.
So I guess I'll go ahead and start us off. Hello, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Tyler Miller, and I'm the band director over at Silverton Middle School. And for this whole, and first of all, thank you so much for having all of us, the music team. We, as a music team, we are very, very excited to be here and present to you, kind of going over what music looks like in the district. We're just gonna do a quick thing on, this mapping out the standards and kind of how we're applying those in our classes, how we applied those last year and how we're currently applying those this year. All right. So Susanna, if you want to move on to our next slide here. All right, this is just a picture, just a snapshot of all of our classrooms of, who this is for and who this is about, right? So without any further ado, let's go ahead. Go ahead, Frank, take it over.
All right, can everyone hear me?
You sure can.
Fantastic. Well, thank you and good evening and welcome to having us on here. We are really appreciative of the opportunity. Kind of going through just what you see right here, the music team has been in collaboration with the district administration. We were working to develop this plan, which provides music to all students. Our district admin team and ourselves, we've been guided by the national standards and the recommendations set forth by the national standards. So these national standards are done through the National Association of Music Education, which is called NAFME, which is pretty much guides all music education across the United States. So we will present what Tyler said. We're going to present the standards and briefly go over each one. Like to say our team will provide in-depth materials or would love to have more of a conversation. Like Mr. Drew said, this is just a synopsis of what's happening, and we're always open to having some more conversation with you about that. So from these standards and recommendations, our team has identified the most essential goals in which we are committed to achieving within the next 5 years. So the goal areas are presented on the slide as you see right there. So number one, really to ensure students have a well-rounded education, students need to receive consistent instruction in which they practice and develop skills. So that's the recommendation of 90 minutes of music. Number two, skills and love for music can be taken to the next level in which they work together, create art through performing ensembles. So taking the skills they learn there, very much like when an architect uses her mathematical skills to produce like a beautiful structure or building, the same thing we do with our skills in music. We put it together and create something beautiful. And number three there, you'll see, we would not trust our health to untrained doctors. We're definitely not going to trust our students' education to unqualified educators, and that is something that's stated there too. So that's kind of a brief of our mission and our goals, and we'll pass it on to Mrs. Botaya to tell you more about the standards.
So our standards are pretty much the backbone of what we do in our classrooms. And typically you guys will see our performing standard a lot. There's probably every single one of you has been to some sort of performance from one of us in the past couple years here. But on top of that, we have all these other standards that we focus on daily within our classrooms. And we'd like to take you through that to see what you would see if you just come into our classrooms.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about creating, which is definitely, I don't know, it might be my favorite one. And I'm going to share an example from Central Hall with you of how we applied that a little bit just recently. But in creating, as we explore playing musical instruments, singing songs, or listening and moving to music, we are giving students opportunities to create within these experiences. So here's a little example from hybrid school. Since I'm traveling from classroom to classroom at Central Hall right now, I gave plastic cups to each student to use as a percussion instrument. And older students learned the cup song rhythm. I don't know if you guys are familiar. That little thing, kind of an old camp game. And then each student was given the opportunity to create their own cups rhythm and write them down in words, write them down in traditional notation. Some students needed help with that, with the rhythms, and then they were performing them for each other. And that brings us to performing with Cole.
Hi, folks. Just in case folks don't know me, my name is Cole Holloway Valenzuela, and I teach choir over at the high school. So as we said before, performing is something that we're very familiar with, and it's probably 10% of really what you get to see, what we do within our classrooms and what the students get to do within our classrooms. But overall, performing is a culmination and celebration of what we do in class. And as we'll see with all the other standards, performance is a product of responding, creating, and connecting all of our standards all together up on stage. But I think something that is really important about our performances is that it does lend an opportunity for our students to be in the demonstration and the educator position. They get to learn a lot of different music from different backgrounds and cultures and time periods, and they get to demonstrate that and demonstrate their understanding of it. So it's a really exciting thing that we do get to do that has to do with a lot of the 90% that we do within that class.
All right, and I get to talk about responding. Responding is actually one of my favorite because it is embedded in pretty much every other standard as well. So when we're creating, when we're performing, students are learning how to listen and respond. They're also learning how to work with each other within the performance side of things. If you're sitting next to someone and they start to crescendo in a phrase of music, they're going to have to listen to that and adjust to that and to be able to balance and blend their instrument. And these are all those skills that have to be there to be able to go into those performances. So the responding part is one of those great standards that we're always looking to for. It's something that's embedded in the performances, the creation. And on top of that, we also have the responding and evaluate their own performances. So Cole and I do a lot of this at the high school. We get to go out and perform at festivals, and we are ultimately get some evaluations and comments that come back. And those comments are kind of the things that really drive us to make our students better. We get constructive feedback. We evaluate our music, we evaluate the performance, and then we try to make it even better and try to bring out more of that passion, that love, that excitement in the music.
So I'll cover the first part of connecting. So this is what's been really exciting about this year is being able to dive deeper into what students are playing and where it comes from and why are we playing this. So for example, because I'm teaching my students all in CDL, distance learning, and just a few weeks ago we went over the opera Carmen, and we were able to talk about the opera, what makes it so special, where is it from, what's it about, what are the historical contexts from it, and how can we apply that to the song that we're playing. And one of the songs in their method book that we're using just so happened to be from the opera Carmen. And so we just got to dive deeper into what students get to play and where that comes from, which is something that is really, really exciting. And we don't get to talk about a whole lot during the school year, but which is one of the highlights for this year. And I think Susanna gets to talk about the second half of connecting.
Yeah, I love this one. This one is one of my favorites because we get to help students understand how music relates to their other classes, their other subjects. We get to show them how music comes off the page, and it's all part of all the different facets of their education and how it's all connected. So it's really great to be able to find those ways, those synapses, and how we can work with other teachers to bring their education alive. So I'm really excited about connecting. I'm actually working with Leslie and Scott with the instructional leadership cohort, finding the way how what I'm doing in my music class aligns with other standards and other subject matters to find those connections between. So I'm very excited about this. This is something we're going to be continuing on later. So we're going to give you kind of a breakdown of what specifically we're doing in each of our classrooms. And I wear a couple different hats. First being I'm an elementary music teacher with Robert Frost. And in my time there, I get to focus on teaching these kids some of the basics. And so we're learning basic reading of music notes and different symbols, being able to read music roadmaps, so that once they get into middle school, they have an idea and they're able to follow along, so that when they start getting, maybe have an instrument in hand, or if they're learning more things about their voice, the music reading part isn't as difficult. It's just something that they've already have some information on and that they're able to grow. When they're in my class, they learn how to use their voice. They learn how to play a variety of instruments, including boom whackers and xylophones and other pitched and unpitched instruments, as well as ukuleles. So I've specifically chosen instruments that students can use their voice, whether it's singing, chanting, rapping, and play an instrument at the same time. Because I have such a short amount of time with them, I want to get the most bang for my buck. I want to make sure we get as many facets as possible. And so at the end of the year, they get to put on this big, huge performance. And with Robert Frost being so huge, I've broken them up by grade levels, so that, say, for instance, if I have a third grade performance, we've got all 5 classes out on stage, showing and presenting all the things they've learned throughout the year, which includes all those instruments I said they learn how to play, as well as choreography. And that's like 125 kids together singing and moving and playing at the same time. It's pretty phenomenal. I'm not gonna lie. And I know Jean does a lot of similar things in her own classroom, and she would like to share that.
Yeah. So I'm at Central Howell, and I didn't introduce myself earlier. I am Jean Elliott, and I was the music teacher at Eugene Field for about 10 years, I think, up till it closed. So this picture right here is actually from Eugene Field, because I didn't have a good picture from Central Howell of kids standing up on risers and singing. But we have general music 3 times a week at Central Howell, so that is really awesome. We are the only school left that has music 3 times a week. Pradham did as well. Our music teacher there retired, Julie Turtelot, just last school year. And that is just awesome to be able to get those 3 days to build and work on the skills that we're learning. So we do a lot of singing, and we have a lot of instruments as well: keyboards, guitar, recorders, xylophones, boom whackers, drums, and all kinds of unpitched percussion. We also do a lot of moving, especially with the younger kids, moving and chanting using rhymes and poems. In our performances, we include all students, the entire school. We have a winter and spring, and we perform at the high school auditorium, which is a lot of fun to go there and use that amazing venue. We incorporate speaking as well as moving and some instruments as well. We encourage a classroom climate of support and celebration. This is really important to me, to encourage students to step out of their comfort zone, maybe try out for a special part, a solo or duet part in the programs, or just try a new skill and be supported and be celebrated. So now on to Silverton Middle School.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and talk briefly about kind of what the band looked like last year and what band looks like currently. So last year we would have band would meet every single day, which was something that was really, really special and really, really awesome. And we had planned 3 to 4 formal performances in the gym, and also with the advanced band, we would go to festivals and play for judges and for other bands, which is something that's really important to, at least I think is very important to expose the middle school students on what other middle schoolers are doing and what they can sound like, and yeah, I just think stuff like that is just extremely important. And we would also have performances up at the high school. I know last year we took the 8th graders to a football game, and they got to play with the marching band. We got to play with the pep band and everything, and they had a ton of fun doing that. And it was a really, really great opportunity to show them what kind of the future for them holds as far as music, if they keep playing their instruments and everything, which was something that was really, really special. This year, we have, because of the schedule at the middle school, band only meets once a week, and it's all exclusively online. I'm trying to work with Brett over at the middle school to hopefully have an in-person rehearsal sometime soon within the next few weeks, which I know the students are getting really, really excited about, because, you know, there's only so much practice time that you could do by yourself in your room, right? But I will say that one of the best parts in all of CDL is honestly how far the 6th grade beginning band students have come from, just because learning an instrument by yourself is very difficult, right? Learning an instrument is difficult, but learning one online where I can't be there to physically show them, you know, how they're supposed to create an embouchure, how they're supposed to, you know, hold their instrument, even make a sound. So I will just say that I'm extremely proud of how they were able to not only make noises on their instrument, but actually play songs together. And they're so excited every class period. Whenever I ask, you know, who wants to demonstrate these 2 measures, right? And I just get loads of hands going up, or I hear the notifications, right, from the Google Meet and everything of how many kids want to actually participate and play for each other, which is something that I think is really, really special. And that's even in distance learning, students are still getting really excited about music and playing for each other.
So here's my other hat, my choir hat over at the middle school. I love getting to see my Robert Frost students at the middle school, because we get to build on the relationships that we had, but it's also awesome to see these students become young adults. And I love getting to teach them through music. And so I want to give them as many various opportunities to see what they can do with this art form beyond our classroom. So when we do these performances, whether it's formal or informal, I want them to go places, different colleges, different schools, be exposed to different directors and get their feedback in person, so it feels easier to obtain. And then I want them to give back to the community. So we do performances for elementaries, so that our younger kids can see that, hey, I like to sing, this is what I can do later. And so I want to really build that into my students as they go through, so that they are able to carry this on later in life, which that leads to kind of the skills that I want them to acquire, which is music literacy, where my students are going to learn a lot about music theory, about how to read the notes even more in depth, and they're going to learn a lot of sight singing, so that they can pick up a sheet of music and they're able to read it on sight with just basic, maybe help from piano. On top of that, I want them to be able to use their voice as healthily and efficiently as possible, so that they have the capacity lifelong singers. And I do that by teaching them a lot of voice science. And I will have them sit down and I'll say, okay, it's time to talk science here. Let's go over this, so that they not only learn the anatomy of their voice, but the physiology of it. So I'm a very big proponent with, if the kids can say Tyrannosaurus Rex, they can say larynx. So that I want to make sure they have these skills moving on forward when they go sing with Cole. And with that, get these kids moving on to high school with Frank and Cole. It's really awesome stuff we got going on there.
All right, well, thank you. Once again, Frank Petrick, Silverton Bands, Silverton High School. We've got a lot of great things happening at the high school. I've been fortunate to be the band director there for 8 years, and now full-time at the high school with Cole. Prior to COVID, to follow what Tyler was talking about, prior to COVID, you can see we have Fox Band, Concert Band, Wind Ensemble. Those are our performing ensembles. Fox Band is our beginning, Concert Bands are more of a JV, Wind Ensemble is our varsity group. In addition to that, we have a jazz band, which meets every day in the mornings. And marching and pep bands. You see us on the fields and you'll see us in the parades with the marching band. We're able to resurrect that about 5 years ago, and with the community's help, purchase all the necessary uniforms for that. So, and that's been great. Been enjoying that program for this time. So, and in addition to that, we have a percussion ensemble, which also is the heartbeat of the marching band and our parade bands, which is the drum lines. And then we have added, in the past 2 years, we have added guitar class, beginning guitar class. And that has been quite the hit. And it's been a lot of fun on a personal level to learn something new myself and to share that with the students and get to learn with them. And it's kind of the gateway music drug to other classes. So we get them in playing guitar, and then we can get them into percussion or other ensembles. COVID this year has been a challenge for all of us. My classes have been 70%, it's about 70% online this year. We're fortunate enough to get back in person, which has been great. We have in-person full jazz band rehearsals on Mondays, and we have had a 40% reduction in members in the band program this year. Mostly, seniors, juniors, just saying, this is not the same, and no fault to them. They just say it's not the same, and we're hoping that we can get them back in the fall. And so really, the students that I have right now have only received band 2 of the 4 quarters. So, and that's kind of how it works at the high school. So Cole and I have got our students spread across all 4 quarters. So right now we're doing lots of recruitment and rebuilding. We are going out, we're making connections with kids. We're going to bring up some middle school students within the next week or so to get them involved. We've had lots of success, actually, even being virtual. We've done some virtual concerts. We've had the solo competition, solo festival. And we've had, I think we had about 6 students participate in the virtual solo festival, and we had a lot of outstanding and superior ratings from those students. And one of the things I really am appreciative of this year and proud of is we have 10 of our 12 seniors will be continuing music in college. And out of those 10, I know that one of the students got a full ride scholarship to play her instrument at college level, and the other students have all received some sort of scholarship to go, and those amounts all vary. So I'm excited about that. So there's a little silver lining. So yeah, and that's band at the high school for performing ensembles. And then we also have other classes which are non-performing that are more music centered. So I'm gonna tag team here with Mr. H, and he can tell you a little about music theory, and I'll tell you about music technology, and we can talk about music history as well.
Hey there. So this year I had the privilege of teaching music theory for the first time, and it was an absolute, for lack of a better way, it was an absolute jam. It was so much fun to actually get into the weeds of how music works and how it came to be the way it's structured right now. I had total, I believe, 7 students within that class. However, we had so much time to work on the fine details of their own musicianship. We even got into a little bit of composing toward the end of the term, and it's something that we're really excited about continuing growing and to show students a different side of what they already are familiar with, or an introduction to a newfound love of music theory. So back to Mr. Petrick. You're on mute, Frank.
There we go. This year, we've been doing a lot of virtual technology online, and that has really created this interest in doing recording. And so I think it was probably about 4 years ago, we actually started Pine Street Records, which is our own record label, and that is at the high school. It's very similar to the technology department, but we have our own record company. So we take in, we include all students into that if they are interested in web design, if they're interested in product design, if they want to learn about microphones, or if they write poetry and they want to put that to lyrics to a song. So we have all these students that might not necessarily be in our programs, but they're on the fringes, and we're able to bring them into our program, give them music in a different way, a different package. And really the important part of this is that this is pretty much where the whole music business side, and there's a lot there for professions, and so we're just really fortunate to be able to offer that to the students. And then Mr. H will talk to you about history of rock and roll. That's something that I started, and he's actually getting to teach that this year.
Another jam, if you will. So music history of rock and roll has been so much fun to teach. It's something that I'm really passionate about. Love rock and roll music. That's a big reason why I actually got into music. It's kind of corny, but the Beatles, right? We're actually learning about the Beatles tomorrow, which is really exciting. But most importantly is that we get to see a side of music that students are exposed to every single day, and we get to learn about where it all came from, right? Where the country blues in 1920s, 1910s, where they started being recorded, how it evolved into jazz and how it evolved into rhythm and blues up in New York, and how rhythm and blues turned into surf music over in California, and how the blues went over to Britain. You know, there's so many different ways that music has connected all of us, and it's very cool to find a way that students are automatically connected to, since they're listening to pop music nowadays, and how music came to be to where it is right now. It's really exciting, and it's super fun to teach. So those are our 3 what we call general music classes that we're offering over at the high school, that we're really eager and excited to continue growing as we get more and more students interested in music. And then we go over to my main event, choir over at the high school. We have 5 ensembles on campus. We have Zorro, our beginning tenor bass, primarily male voice choir. We also have Serenity, our treble choir, primarily our female voice choir. We have Bellissima, our advanced treble choir, and our concert choir, which is our mixed large ensemble. And then we have Choralaires, which traditionally or historically was a jazz ensemble that turned into a contemporary a cappella group back when Jennifer Kircher was teaching here in Silverton. And it's been a lot of fun to kind of see this program grow from when I was a student teacher over here to what Ms. Kircher did. I call her Ms. Kircher because she was my middle school choir teacher, and and to what we're doing now over at the high school. A big proponent that we really showcase within our program, especially in the choir, is how active we are within our performances. Like I said, that is the 10% of what we do, but it is a huge opportunity for our students to share what they do. And I think that's really the bottom line of what students really strive for and really hope for when they have any sort of experience of something that they're passionate about, is that they get to actually share that with community members, each other, friends, family, peers, loved ones, administration, community members. They are eager to show their understanding of something that they learned within their classes, especially when it comes to something that's so important, such as different backgrounds of cultures, different religions, different points of views, different time periods. This is all something that students so desperately want to demonstrate to so many different people. And luckily we have those opportunities over at the high school. We have 4 performances that we do every single year, one in the fall, winter, a spring event, the cabaret, where we get to showcase students' individual talents and abilities. It's kind of like a talent show. And then at the end of the year, we have an end of the year concert, and we wrap everything up and we say goodbye to the year. But we have so many more different opportunities to share music with different universities, performing over at conferences, performing at joint conference concerts over at universities such as Willamette University. We just recently did over at Oregon State University. We recently just did, but we also get to share music with different community members, much like Sasan said about elementary schools. Traditionally, chorales would usually be the ones who would go out and do school tours, but recently we wanted to really make sure that we showcase our beginning choirs, because those are the choirs that they're going to be in right off the bat. So we took Zorro and Serenity last year before COVID happened, actually right before COVID happened in February, and got to show them our set list that we were going to perform over at Cabaret. So that's usually what a traditional year looks like. This year, as Frank said, we have 4 different sections of concert choir, our top mixed ensemble. And so that was a bit harder on us to make those same connections as we usually would within those higher ensembles, but we still had every single ensemble happen. And we ended up making some virtual performances that we released out to the public. If you haven't had a chance, you guys can always look up Silverton High School Choirs, and we have a YouTube channel that you can check out with our virtual performances. We still have some in-person things happening, which is really exciting, with chorales and Serenity and concert choir right now that we're back in school. But kind of going back to the whole performance thing, performances were really lacking this year because of COVID. However, now that we have the opportunity to be in person, as I said before, students want to be in front of people and to share what they're doing within the classes and what they're learning within classes. They want to be educators for our community that shares diversity and shares inclusion. And it's exciting to see our young folks have that kind of mindset of just wanting to be a part of something bigger than they ever thought they were going to be a part of. As recently as today, long story short, I didn't know that if the chorales would want to perform over at 2 graduation ceremonies, especially those graduating seniors who would be a part of one session and then have to stay for another session. And so I said, hey, maybe we don't do a performance at graduation and maybe we record. You should have seen their faces. It looked like I might have told them that we're never going to sing again. So after seeing their reactions, we decided that we are definitely going to be performing at graduation, which is great. But that's just the thing that they're passionate about. They want to perform and they want to share their music, and they want to make sure that people get the opportunity to experience what they experience. Every single rehearsal, every single performance that we have, I always say this. I say, there is probably someone out there that needs this. Why can't it be you that gives that to them? And I think it's something that's really, really important that we always go into every single performance and rehearsal. They might need it. And so why can't it be them that gives it to them? So that's what we do over here at the high school for choir folks. It's good stuff. It's fun.
So as you can see, we do have a strong start in what we're doing over here at Music. Especially starting next year, having a more cohesive K through 12 musical experience, having someone in the elementary program offering that K through 5 experience to those kids is really, really awesome and special. But as a music team, we are committed to helping grow kind of what we already have and hopefully offer it to every student in within the Silver Falls School District, giving those students those opportunities, just like what Cole was mentioning, to those students who really need it. And we are also committed to collaborating, with the community, with the administration team, and hopefully with you, the board as well, to keep growing and thriving as a music program. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for letting us be here. Like I said before, this is something we are all very, very passionate about, very, very excited about. And please let us know if you have any questions. Thank you so much, everybody.
Well, thank you, Tyler, and thank you to your music team. Really enjoyed the presentation, and I think it was a few days ago last week, Cole, that I was in your class. I took a seat in the back because I loved it so much. Cole was making the connection between surf guitar and was featuring the Beach Boys, and I mean vintage Beach Boys, black and white. And you were connecting that to, I can't remember the artist, Cole, but I was so fascinated by, I think it was a freshman class in your history. It was a music history class is what it was.
I'm trying to remember what it is too. I mean, there's Dick Dale and the Deltones.
I think
it was 4 freshmen, I think, it was that part that you got to see, but it might have been Dick Dale and the Deltones. Yeah. Yeah,
it was wonderful. And I asked Cole on my way out when he's going to get to heavy metal. So, which is more my generation. So that's coming. So just so you know, board members, if you'd like to stop by when Cole's teaching about heavy metal, I'm sure he'd let you know. Well, great music team. Thank you so much again. We're really proud of you and proud of the work you've done. And we look forward to much collaboration in the future. And Leslie, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you from a teaching and learning standpoint. We've done a lot of good work in teaching and learning this year, and some of that has been focused on making sure we have a guaranteed and viable curriculum as far as K-12 music is concerned, and not just music, but the arts. And so I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Leslie.
Sure. Hello. Good evening, everyone. So you have heard Scott and I talk multiple times this year about our beginning work this year on projection mapping, which is step 1 in our long-term plan to create a guaranteed and viable curriculum. So we wanted to connect what you heard tonight from the music team to the work that they did on their own projection maps. So I actually pulled up a projection map that the music team has done. This is beginning choir. And you can see here, this is what all of our maps look like in all of our subjects, K-12. It is broken down into units, about how many days it would take that teacher to teach those units. And they even put in the dates for next year. And then the music team did a really great job of covering their standards. And you can see here on this far column, this is their first standard, creating. So the standards go down the column. And in unit 1, you'll see right here is this column. They have picked out the standards that they would be covering in unit 1. And so it goes down through all of the standards, and you can see that they don't do every standard in each unit. You only teach the standards. You only put the standards in the units that you're going to be teaching them. So no creating in this unit, but when you get to unit 2, there will be creating. And so this continues throughout the entire year. All of these standards are mapped out for beginning choir for the entire year. So as I just slowly scroll here, you'll see all of these units have standards connected to them. And these maps have been created, like I said, K-12 for all of our subjects. So not just choir and band and elementary music that the music team has created, but also art, our CTE courses. These courses
Performing
are
arts,
mapped out.
performing arts as well. Yeah.
So any teacher next August can pick up our district-wide map for that subject and see what unit and standard is being taught. And then, like Sasana shared, how those standards might connect to something else that they're teaching. And Sasana gave a great example in a conversation I had with her a couple of weeks ago, actually, about, you know, 4th grade is teaching the Oregon Trail and they were listening to the song Oh Susanna. Well, that song really could connect to her class if she knew when they were teaching that. So teachers can really start to see how their subjects and standards align and work together with this mapping work.
A couple things that I would add to projection mapping, and that is figuring out how much we have to teach and making sure that it fits within an instructional year where we get the guaranteed and viable piece, is that number one, we utilize our teachers as the experts and expert instructors as they are. And so really, at least in my view as a superintendent, this really honors the work of every individual teacher, because we want to make sure that every subject area is mapped. The other thing that this document does is this is a visual promise to our community that we hold these content areas sacred as part of the educational program at at Silver Falls School District. And so there is a science to how we map out what it is we expect students to learn. And this work has all been done 100% by our own teachers and will continue to. And the next step to this is the unit mapping. So our music team has done a great job of laying out how many standards we have and how many instructional days and grouping those standards into units to make sure that we can get those in an instructional year. And then next is planning each individual unit. How will that look? And so kids have a continuum and a progression as they go up through the grades. And so we would address this and music the same way we would go about addressing language arts or any other subject area. The methodology is similar, but the content is different. So just to give you a little bit of insight into the work that we've done in teaching and learning, and I think the future of Silver Falls is really bright in that respect. Leslie, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I think that captures it, unless there
Nice
was any
work.
questions.
Well, and I would just add in also that, you know, in bringing to a K2 and a 3-5 school to 2 K5 schools, we have brought the same program to each school. So we've actually added music FTE this year. And so with the K-12 alignment with our in-town schools is definitely an improvement, but you know, and it's a jumping off point. So having said that, if you have any overarching questions that we might be able to answer, I'm more than happy to answer those. Otherwise, we can move on to the final part.
Thanks, Scott. It's pretty exciting. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It was great to hear, and it gets me
Yeah.
kind of raised up, unintended. Shelley, I saw your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I think you answered some of my questions, but I just need, I think, some more clarification on the instructional map that is now being implemented into our district. How is this instructional map different from what was implemented or not implemented before you came here? What, do you see what I mean? Is it, you know, I hear, is it my understanding or my interpretation correct that, you know, regular ed teachers, especially in the K-5, are still going to be teaching the music part of music education in our district? Or are we going to have specific music teachers for There are
Well,
schools or what,
Yeah.
can you help me just clarify?
Well, and that remains to be seen. I think we have
Okay,
planning to do with that. And that's some of the work that I need to do with a board in terms of what the board's vision is with regard to the resolution. That will all bear out in the strategy that we use.
right.
We before we do anything in any
Okay.
subject area in Silver Falls, we first need to be able to answer the question, what are we expecting kids to learn? You know, because that's going to dictate what it is that we teach. And since we are a public school, we do teach the standards. And as the music team showed us, we do have national music standards, and we want to make sure that we're mapping those out to make a promise that kids will receive instruction connected to those standards. And that's where we want to start. So we're really at the starting point right now.
Okay, because I just wrote down a load of questions that I had. There were some questions that were answered by the music team, but there are still a lot of questions that I have regarding our music in our district, and how that connects with the resolution that was presented 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And how we can build a foundation of serious music curriculum.
Yeah.
K through 12. I mean, I'm just going to say I was a regular ed teacher, teaching first and second grade. I've said this before as a board member in the last 4 years I've been on this board, that I have some music methodology that I could teach my kids in my class, but I am not by any means a music teacher, where a music teacher could really impact the brain development of our young students, moving up into the grades and such. So I am thrilled to see a music team come to the board and present. This is a monumental moment, especially for me. I have never seen this before in the 4 years I've been on the board. I've been waiting for this for 4 years. And I want to thank you so much, Scott, for allowing this team to express what they need in order to build a real foundation of music in this district. Because it is, as we all know, this is not, new news, that music is developmentally critical for young students throughout K through 12. Their brain development, speech development, sound interpretation, reading skills. It's not new news. So thank you for bringing this to us, allowing them to share that with us. And I think I can ask the rest of my questions offline.
Sure.
And I'll be reaching out, not to take up more time, but boy, thank you so much. This is a great way to end my 4 years. I'm leaving, but boy, this just, my adrenaline is pumped. I just can't believe it. It's a dream come true. So keep on the good work. Let's get all of the schools having a music teacher, like Central Howell and Robert Frost and the rest of the schools. Let's get them a music teacher in there. Make it a part of the curriculum that's a norm, not something off to the side. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Shelley. And I would pass all of the credit right along to the music team. And thank you all. You make us really proud. Did somebody else have a question?
Yep, Janet.
Just real quick, I didn't have a question. Shelley really said it all. I just wanted to thank all of our presenters tonight for sharing your gift, your talent, your obvious love of music and performance with your students. It's so clear that you share that love with them. And it's just so tangible that that's what you bring to your classrooms. And so I really appreciate you all. And thank you for get excited about what you're sharing with your students. We get to see the performance, but we don't get to see the behind the scenes. And so obviously if the performances are any indication, there's some amazing stuff going on in the classroom. So thank you very much for coming.
Please come to the classrooms. We would love to have you anytime, any day. So, and I speak for everyone. So come see us.
Yep, thanks, Janet. Are there other questions for Scott?
I don't know if it's a question necessarily, but yeah, I would love, and as many of you know, what the arts and music means to me, I would love to see music just become anchored in our curriculum K through 12. And I would love to know what that looks like. And I would love to hear more from this wonderful music group who knows, who are experts in this subject. I'd like to hear more from them about how that would look. How can we make this happen for this school district? I think it's quite exciting, and I am deeply appreciated for all the work that's been done by everyone. So thank you, Scott, and thank you, music group. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
Other questions or comments?
Nice work, everyone.
Yeah, it's great. And you know, it's a real shame we had to spend the last, you know, what is it now, 15 plus months dealing with the fallout of COVID. I think, you know, this is a conversation that we were kind of getting geared up to have quite a while ago, but you know, there were some other things, pressing matters to deal with, and we're still trying to, you know, as you guys all mentioned, you know, it's great to have music, but it's hard to even do some of the time right now. So we're working on it. We'll hopefully get it back in the fall.
Sometimes things happen for a reason, and here we are. So really nice to see you all, and class dismissed as far as that's concerned. And then I can talk to the board a little bit about the music resolution. I'm happy to do that. And, you know, I had it as part of our talking points tonight. And I think the best way to approach this is to have this put on the agenda for this summer. What I'd really like to do is work with the board to try to clearly establish what our next steps are. I just want to hear clearly, although, you know, I'm not expecting to hear anything surprising, but I do think this warrants a discussion. I think that it's been a while since this resolution was passed. It's time that we revisit it. And then I need to know, you know, what's important to the board, and so that I can bring you back some ideas on how that might possibly look. So I think there's more to come on that. So I think it's a great topic for the July work session, to be honest. And we can talk about that later. But anyway, just wanted to end with the music resolution and sort of where I see that going. And having said that, if there are no other questions or comments, we can excuse our music team.
I just have one more quick question. It'll be
Go ahead, Shelley.
Scott, do you have a copy of Dr. Benham?
I do.
His research
Yep.
that was done a couple of years ago, the extensive research study? Okay.
Yes, I've
Okay.
read the whole study, and I know of his work. Of course, he did work in Beaverton as well.
Oh, he did. Oh, I didn't know that.
so,
Okay. Oh, no.
but yes.
Silverton Friends of Music brought him in to do a study several years ago. So yeah, just wanted to make sure you have that.
I appreciate that.
information.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, thank
Lots
you.
of information there. Sure.
Mhm.
Right.
Anything else?
So yeah, I think it probably does make a lot of sense to really dig into what this means and what the board wants to do with the resolution.
Mhm.
And that we get our, you know, back in school regular, so that we have the ability to really put this into practice, maybe more than was possible this last year. But yeah, makes a lot of sense, Scott, and I can't wait.
Yeah, that's great.
I just wanted to, I guess, underscore, I can't remember who it was, maybe Susanna, who talked about opportunities for students to gain confidence through like solo pieces or something like that. And I remember that from my own elementary general music experience. And to me, when we're talking about music, just thinking about the student experience and how opportunities can help them. That's on my mind, just moving forward as we move into that July work session.
It's a great point. You know, I'll make it personal for a minute. My son Joshua took Frank's first intro to guitar class, would have been last year. And, you know, he's still now he plays guitar every single day and has gotten quite actually fairly accomplished, right? For being essentially self-taught past that intro to guitar class. And, you know, that was his first exposure to guitar, right? He thankfully had some piano lessons that we provided, but there, you know, that gave him the ability to read music, understand rhythms, and understand time, you know, all kinds of stuff. But having the exposure is key, I think. And so anyway, we could go all, way down that rabbit hole tonight, but we don't need to. But it's really positive. I love the presentation. Okay. Anything else before we move into our policy update discussions? All right. Well, under item 4, policy items, we have a number of first readings for policy updates. And, you know, some of these are pretty perfunctory and some of them have a little more meat. And so I think what we'll do is we'll just go through each one and give folks the opportunity to weigh in if they have any questions, concerns, or comments. If we want to just talk about it and, you know, pick each other's brain and try to figure out where we're at and if we understand it correctly. So with that, I'm going to open it up for policy AC, the non-discrimination policy. And if anybody on the policy work group wants to give us a verbal intro, I would welcome it. You know, just a quick summary of kind of where we're at.
All right, I'll take a stab at it. Dixon, please jump in if you have something to add. But the anti-discrimination policy has been a while in the works, actually. It took us a few months to get through this one because we had some back and forth. We also had Janet jump in to do an incredible amount of research and to really take this to the next level. So thank you for that, Janet. So in its final form, it is meeting all the standards that OSBA has set. There will be an AR that goes along with this at your next work session for a first read. I'm sorry that we didn't get that in time. We wanted to get this one to you as quickly as possible. So essentially, it's covering all protected classes, making sure that everyone is protected and taken care of in our district. I can ask, you know, I can answer specific questions, or if you guys have any, or if you want to take a read through, just let me know.
What were, I mean, I read the cover sheet. What were the major, a summary, I guess, of the major changes from the template provided by OSBA?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jonathan. So there were two things that we added. Physical appearance was one of them. The other was gender identity or gender expression to the list of protected classes. Those were just to be aligned with commonly accepted human rights standards, frankly. To some extent, you know, OSBA went back and forth a little bit with us on this one because they thought that sexual orientation covered those classes. We thought it best to spell them out more explicitly, and they agreed that it was appropriate and legal to do so. That's really kind of about it. Yeah, there was one thing they wanted us to remove that we had put in there. We used the word whistleblower. They said, you know, that's too limiting. So you want to take that out to not only, you know, have that classification or that term covered.
Great.
Dixon, did you want to add anything to that?
No, Dawn did such a good recap. I just kind of follow her lead.
Well, we sure appreciate your help, both of you.
Any comments or questions or concerns from the board? Anything you want to talk about? Okay. All right, next one up, BDC Executive Sessions. And I think we'll go down the same pattern with all of these. I really like the verbal summary personally, so we'll continue down that pattern.
At my age, Dawn, I need prompts, so I'd prefer a split screen.
Do you want to jump in on this one, friend, or do you want me to take it on?
I'm going to watch you. I really like the cover sheets, but I don't have them in front of me. All I have is the Brady Bunch pictures there. So.
Okay, no problem. So this one as well, we actually took some time and we knew that anything related to the board, we were going to really want OSBA to run through that. And also to make sure that the board members that are part of the policy work group had lots of input and feedback for us. So there was a question that we had to go to OSBA to get answered regarding minor students, and you'll see that in the cover sheet. That was not a big deal at all. There was a line that we added back in regarding members of the press. And basically, we thought it was important to keep the language from the old policy that just restated, this is what executive session is about. This is what you are permitted or not permitted to do. The other thing that we added was a phrase before the list of topics that basically said, and just reinforced, that the board must only discuss published agenda items in executive session. And that's just based on history with this board and in executive session, knowing that there have been issues in the past that led us down to some liabilities, and we wanted to avoid that.
I did point out when Dawn and I were going over this, my experience on the WESD board, that we got into a little bit of an issue when we strayed from the subject that was published for executive session. And it made quite a bit of press. It was on the front page of both papers. And of course, they stuck Ken Hector and my face on the front page of the paper as being leading an ethics violation. But fortunately, as I'm sure most of you know, that when you take the advice of your attorney, you're kind of immune from being penalized. So in that particular case, our punishment was we had to sit through a class for an hour and a half on what you could talk about in executive session. So Dawn and I, this was quite an interesting one, especially talking about the press, what they can and can't do, and what the board can and can't do in executive session. So,
Janet?
Yeah, I was just gonna, this is the one, Dawn, where, if I remember correctly, medical records was expanded to include a more broad, all confidential records. Is this the one where that was also done? Okay. I don't know if you wanted to speak to that at all. I mean, it was basically just a word change, but
Right.
you know, it's good for us to keep in mind to understand what that means.
That's a good point, actually. You're right. So it used to say matters pertaining to or examination of the confidential medical records of the student. So including that student's educational program. So OSBA changed that language, and I think for the better, and made it a little bit more explicit and a little more detailed. So that's the major change that they asked for, and we thought it was right to just pass that along.
That's item number 10. So on that list of on your proposed copy, number 10 is just a much broader definition there.
Shelley?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I wanted to thank you for also including the specific information about what you can and cannot talk about in executive session. As many people know, we've had issues on this board with that. And having it clear in policy now and having everybody understand that, that you can't behave in a way that is violating policy, not only from board members, but from superintendents and such. It's important to have that in there. So I hope moving forward after I'm gone, there's going to be a little bit better respect for that with the rest, you know, moving on, you know, after I'm not here. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments on BDC? Okay, one thing I still find that I wish I had was a marked up version, right? Because you can look at the original and you can look at the new one and you can pull them up side by side, but it just I guess in my work, I'm just used to marked up versions of stuff. So if there's any way to do that in the future, I would certainly appreciate it.
Absolutely, Jonathan, we can do that.
I'll almost look to Dawn, how difficult would that, because I'm actually looking between because I have access to some of the work that we're doing behind the scenes. I'm just wondering if some kind of in between there to see a little bit of the work would be possible.
That is certainly an option. We do in our group, we use marked up versions. However, the group had decided that since the group has half the board on the group, that their input was sufficient to bring us along to that final version. But different people work in different ways, and certainly people learn in different ways. So we are happy to do whatever this group needs.
Well,
And
and
I could, go ahead, Jonathan.
it's not necessary to have all the, what I'll call the internal deliberations, but what would be helpful is if I knew exactly how the new version differed from the current version. And that part, there's some summary in the cover sheet, right? I mean, it talks to it, but just seeing the written words and how they differ in a particular line or a line that was inserted or modified, that would help me personally. So I guess that's my request.
Are you looking,
So,
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Jonathan, are you looking more for what the previous policy was to
Right.
what's being presented
Correct.
there?
Now,
Okay.
So one thought I had, Jonathan, is would that version be helpful if we sent it to, well, and this is where I'm not sure where documentation comes in. I think having that version available publicly and available in a work session means that there's a potential for wordsmithing every single phrase. So I want to point out that potential area of making this process more difficult, just as an idea to throw out there. And so I'm not sure if having that offline would be appropriate or if it would need to be completely online.
Yeah, I don't know if it would or not. I mean, technically you can, of course, I do the mental gymnastics to diff them anyway. It's just harder. So
Right.
I guess I'm just, it's a request, you know, if nobody else is interested and I'm kind of on an island on that one, that's fine. I'm not gonna. Yeah.
Jennifer, go ahead.
I can see it both ways. I really like that we have this committee that is in, bringing these to the full board because it makes me feel like I don't have to look for every single little change. I have a level of trust, right? But I do also, I like that idea of being able to quickly see where the change was so that I can give my best input. So for me, I could go either way.
Well, we'll certainly take that input into account. And just to clarify, it's a work group, not a board committee. So we can absolutely do that. And Dawn, we can collaborate over that, for the next meeting.
Shelley, go ahead.
I was just going to quick say, there's a lot of markups on the sheets when they come in. There's brackets, there's highlights, there's gray highlights, there's, there's cross outs, there's all kinds of markups when they come, from OSBA. And I think that Dawn and Dixon have done a tremendous job of color coding and, deciphering what has been changed and what hasn't. So I just wanted to throw that out there to you, Jonathan, that when they do come, there's just so much markup anyway. So it's kind of, it's almost I guess in my opinion, it's a busy work to do that instead of getting into the actual changes. But I just wanted to throw that out there to tell you what comes to the policy work group and how it is. It's just food for thought.
I think one of the things that I wanted to say about the work group is that we have Dan present, we have Scott present, we have our community members, and we have 3 board members on that policy committee too. So my understanding was that was part of what we were doing, was going through and picking out the weeds from the flowers and trying to make it more cohesive and operate in the best way for the school district. So that was my understanding about the work group, but I'd like to know if anybody else on the board feels differently. But I just wanted to, rest assured that to the rest of the board members who are not on that work group, that we have 2 administrators and 3 board members on it, along with community members. So anyway, that's all I wanted to point out.
No, I'm hearing that, and I want to make sure I'm clear, because I think probably I was misunderstood slightly. It's not a question of, do I think you guys have figured out what's supposed to go where, and I don't need to see all the internal deliberations. I was just curious. The net effect was we're changing this word here and that word there. That's all I want. I just wanted the net effect to be readily apparent, and that was it. So
I do think, if when you get the policies in advance to review, if there are questions, I think that myself and if I have a question, I'll go to Dawn, to be able to say, if there's a question about something that you think shifts, can you show me the changes between the previous policy and the current policy? Can you show me the changes between the OSBA recommended policy and what the work group recommends? I mean, those are all things that with just, 24 hours notice, we could probably get you a pretty quick summation back to you. That might be the most efficient way of answering some of those questions from previous policy to current OSBA to what we created or proposed.
And I ran into Debbie in town today, so this might be news to Dan and Scott, but we talked about the possibility of moving our meeting so that we actually have much more time between when we finish our policies and work group and when they make it onto the agenda, so that you guys might have additional lead time, which I think might also give that time to compare the documents and get questions back to us.
Always getting better.
I love bumping into Debbie at the store. That's
fun. Yeah,
the
in
store?
person.
Was it?
Post office, but yeah.
Oh,
same.
post. I love it.
On the street in Silverton.
okay, I think we are
All
ready
right.
now for BDDG. Did I skip? No, that's the next one, right?
Uh-huh.
And
Right.
again, just a nice quick summary probably would be helpful.
Okay, you got it. So there's actually one item here that I want you guys to give us some feedback on. And again, this is a board policy, so we're here to discuss this with you guys. We did add back a statement from the 2017 version, which basically added in that supporting statements, documents, and papers of substance to issues addressed. So that's just basically saying these are all things that go into the minutes and they should be made publicly available. There was some minor bracketed language that we needed to choose. And then the most substantial thing was that we added a suggested time frame to make minutes available to the public. We did run that past your admin team, and especially Debbie, since this is on her docket. And, we all agreed that that was an appropriate amount of time. The one thing that we did go back and forth on a little bit, and the work group here, this is new to you since Janet and I did editing together, but we did add back in the seconds to item number 2. So the motion plus the second, that's something that, Dixon had said, no, this is appropriate to add in based on other boards. And also Janet felt that that was important to put back in. So it is back in there. So that's up for you guys to kind of discuss right now. Do you want motions, seconds, plus proposals, resolutions, orders, and measures in the meeting notes?
Thank you. I'll speak for myself. I think if I like the 10, you're talking about the 10 days, or first you were talking about the 10-day window or the 10
That
business
time frame.
Right.
Yeah. And then the motions, there's no downside to having seconds. We already have the date. I'm sure she takes that in her minutes anyway.
Okay, sounds good.
That's my 2 cents.
I think that it solidifies the process of how we do things. So I think it's healthy to have that in there. And that way, if there's anything that goes wrong, we can back it up.
So, okay, I think that's fine. I mean, it says to make minutes available to the public within 10 business days of board approval. But of course, board approval will take up to several weeks depending on, so just making sure everybody was clear on that too.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on BDDG? All right, next up, Bddh, public comment.
All right, so another board-related policy. So let's see, the main things in the cover sheet here, bracketed language, there's always gonna be bracketed language. We added some language about public comment at remote meetings to keep up with the Zoom times. The last paragraph, the notes on the cover sheet, basically it was just really poorly written in my opinion. So we kind of took it apart and put it back together so that it was more readable. Accessibility is something that I'm particularly concerned with as a dyslexic reader. And then on item number 4, we did clarify that time limits must be consistently applied to all visitors. We also added in there a phrase about maintaining decorum. So this is reinforcing our normal policy, but also making very, very clear that the types of conversations that are permitted during public comment are made to be in a way that we can role model communication and civil discourse for our children and our students.
Okay, I don't think I have any questions. Anybody else? Okay, let's see. Next one is GCN, this is an AR, core teaching standards. Oh, wait, this is removal, correct?
Correct. Yeah, and since this is an AR, this was in Dan's shop, so we relied on him to look at that in the legislative history and get his approval to go ahead and recommend delete on this one.
Okay. Any questions or concerns? Right. Religion and schools.
All right. So the update from OSBA was essentially taking, what was a more detailed policy and condensing it into 2 super brief paragraphs. And when we looked at this, we understood, okay, we looked at the before, we looked at what was tailor-made for this district last time, but we also really recognize that following OSBI on this one is the right thing to do. It minimizes district liability and it maximizes inclusivity. So we thought that this was a really positive change to make. The other thing that will come up when we talk about the AR next is that it does keep all of those details that were in the policy or alluded to in the policy. They're still there in an AR, which is the appropriate place for them.
Anybody have any questions or concerns? Right, IGAC AR, religious beliefs and customs, which is, it says recommended the board consider deleting or repealing.
This one should be a new optional. So, sorry, there were older ones that are being repealing, you're right. This one, the IGAC AR is a recommended adopt. So, and again, we sent this one to Dan for review. His notes are there at the bottom, but essentially being able to answer questions from parents when they come forward with questions about religion or religious teaching.
So just for my edification, when it says recommended the board consider deleting and or repealing previous policies, we're not proposing to do that currently. That's not part of this.
You know what? I'm not sure the logistics of this, of how you guys get there. So if you adopt the new version of AGAC, does that mean that the older one is automatically deleted, or do you need an action to do that?
Well, we have, so IGAC and IGAC-AR are both on the docket. Is that a complete replacement?
Yes.
Of the previous 2? Okay, then I think we're okay. It's just the wording I think threw me.
I think IGAC-AR is new. Debbie or Dan, do you remember if, I don't know that we have one of these yet.
I think you're right that the AR is new. Let me do a quick check.
And Jonathan, to your note about the other ones, I'm going to look at IGACA because we did not look at that yet and see basically if that's a replacement or not.
I think
There
that's
was
my
no,
question. Sorry, I should have asked that before. If they all three kind of go together and we need to repeal, replace, or remove, or whatever that other one, we should do them all together, I think.
That you're right. Okay, so Dan, you said the AR is new, right?
they are is new.
Okay, can you just take a quick look, Dan, and tell us what IGACA, the title of that one is?
IG.
IGACA.
Yeah, a second. Recognition of religious beliefs and customs, and there is an AR for that.
Okay.
And let me just quickly check the AR.
It's the same.
Oh, yeah. They basically combined this. They pretty well stripped down the IGAC and then put everything into IGAC, the AR. So it is identical.
Okay, so we should be repealing IGACA, is that correct? I'm sorry, we can probably do that part offline. I was just wondering if it was completely different or if it's all aligned and we just should have had that on our list of things to delete tonight.
It's just the name has changed, right?
It's a separate policy number, so
that's what I mean by the
yeah.
Well, so IGAC is the teaching religion in schools, and IGACA is the recognition of religion in schools. And so I don't know if IGACA is recommended for repealing.
It is. I just looked it up. Yeah,
Okay.
sorry. This is on my spreadsheet. So this is a delete repeal of IGACA and the AR. So why don't we get you that for the next board meeting, but consider IGAC is to replace IGACA, recognition of religious beliefs and customs. I'm sorry. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And we can still count this as the first reading for that, I'm assuming.
Right.
Okay, graduation exercises, IKFB.
Okay, this one was really straightforward. All we did was select bracketed language. We did some grammar editing and looked at the footnotes. There was something specific in there about cultural consideration, mostly for Native Americans. So not something we deal with a lot in our district, but anyway, it just brings us up to date and in line with what OSBA has updated.
That was one of the easy ones.
It was.
All right. Unless there's any concerns, we'll move on to JFCJ, weapons in the schools.
Okay, so this was basically because of revised statutes, we needed to take a look at this. One of the things that changed was that previously districts could actually have the ability to request that ODOT suspend a student's driver's license. They no longer can do that. So that kind of caused this to come up on our spreadsheet. And we just talked about a couple things, but again, we pretty much took this straightforward from OSBA, didn't make any changes except for very minor grammar edits. We did have a question about, well, does this apply to staff? And sure enough, there is a different policy for staff. That one is not currently on our docket for an update, probably because there wasn't a statute change, but just know that this is specific to students.
So one of the concerns I've had with the broad definition of dangerous weapon is it would include pretty much anything in the auto shop, right? So I mean, I get the intent and I don't want to nitpick it, but it feels like that's almost overly broad, right? Any weapon, device, instrument, material, or substance which under the circumstances it is used or attempted to be used or threatened to be used is readily capable of causing death or serious physical injury. I mean, if I hold up a 1.125" wrench, I mean, I could, you know, do a lot of damage with that, right? So I don't know. That struck me as overly vague, but I don't know what other people think. So.
But that wrench would be an appropriate tool for the shop, whereas a switchblade wouldn't, for example.
Total agreement. I was just reading what it said for the purpose of the policy. A weapon includes quote, and then it says that. So.
No, I've had
It
that.
also means attempted to be used, Jonathan, there as well. So it's really about the intent and how that's going to be used.
Okay. So
That's a
really
great
you
catch.
have to combine the two then. That's what they're saying. Okay. That's fine.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we used to have the same thing with kids bringing their baseball bats to school for an after school game and kind of, you know, that issue. So, but yeah, it's the attempted to be used.
And we even did discuss that, you know, we now have a skeet shooting team and that purpose is permitted. So it's as the superintendent grants permission for those activities that do require a weapon. But again, the intent kind of leads to this policy.
Then I'm good.
Just so you know, the trap team has to keep all their tools at home. No shotguns or shells are allowed on campus at any time. And they're incredibly responsible, by the way. I saw them about a week ago. Your kid.
Well, there were still shotguns on the backs of pickups when I was in high school. So.
Mine too.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay, student suicide prevention.
Okay, so this is a new and required policy. It was released last May, so we're a little overdue on this one. And again, this was due to a specific act. And, you know, essentially the only changes that we made were for clarity. There was a whole section about training of staff and development of staff materials that was very, very convoluted and difficult to get through to read. So we just changed the language to simplify it. And we added contractors in the last paragraph, just thinking that anybody who's working with our kids should have access to this training material and should be versed on how to prevent acts of suicide. So again, pretty straightforward one, not one that we changed a lot in terms of language.
Two things. Oh, go ahead, Janet. Somebody else.
Sorry, Jonathan. No, actually, my question was about the prevention plan, because I had actually asked Dawn, is there an AR or is the prevention plan sort of by de facto the AR for this policy? And I wondered whether, what does the process look like for putting to, is that something that we could, that has a boilerplate that we purchase and then customize? Is it something that we develop as part of a committee? Not we, but Scott's team develops as part of a committee, or how do we go about doing that in a way that feels really comprehensive and with all the best research and so on and so forth? It's very complicated, right? I mean,
Well, that would definitely be where I would want to start, Janet, with you know, looking to OSBA and other districts that have created ARs around this. It's not something I think that we could just freestyle in a work group. We'd really want to dive deep and get the research from the experts on that as well, and from what other school districts our size are doing as well to address that.
Yeah, I've got to think that there are some templates out there for mental health practitioners and so forth. So that's good to know. And I imagine that because we're already a year late with this, that we'll try to get on that and get something put together, hopefully by the fall if we can. So I appreciate that. All right, cool. Thank you.
Dawn, Dixon, thank you so much. Cannot thank you enough. So grateful. And Dawn, I believe the numbers escape me. Was it like 185 policy updates all told that we
Yeah, close to 200.
close to 200?
Yeah, when we group them by policy plus AR.
And so we're chipping away.
We really are. And thank you all for being patient with this. This was 10 tonight. This was a
Yes.
lot. How did this feel? Do you think we can kind of keep up this pace? Because I really would like us to get through these in the next year. That's how long it'll take us.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
I would say I could handle even a few more during the summer months when the rest of our docket is lighter.
Great.
We did
We'll
have
load you up.
We did have a very good time with Scott and Dan because we got through quite a bit the other day when the four of us were able to meet. Because sometimes it's very hard for the board members to be able to respond to our requests, but we really cranked them out with Scott and Dan, and that was really helpful.
Nice.
Yeah, that was one intense meeting, I'll tell you. We used every minute of those 2 hours.
We ended early. Pretty sure we got out.
Did we?
We were
Yeah.
close. Yeah, we were close. But we didn't go over.
We didn't go over, fair enough.
I wanted to thank you guys for your hard work. I haven't been there for a little bit due to some family issues, but thank you so much for your dedication, really.
I saw your prelude with the music and stuff, and I would liken it, Dawn is playing 6 instruments, and I'm playing my clarinet. So
That's not true.
she's like almost a walking orchestra by herself. So
I might be the orchestra conductor. I'm whipping everyone around, but everyone's just going with it. So I'm thrilled. And
it's very welcome.
Dixon's got the whole percussion section. He's got 4 or 5 instruments in front of him. So it's all coming together.
Well, and just so you know, as a board, in the spirit of how we like to do things here in Silver Falls, and that is we are a community, and these policies are absolutely the community's policies, and we want to make sure that we take an inclusive and transparent approach to how we revise our updates. And you know, we have an expectation of our leaders in Silver Falls, that is, we model giving and receiving feedback, and this falls right into that. And so I just want to thank you all for your attention, and again, thank you to our community members for really stepping up and giving us that.
Yeah. And thank you to Janet. Thank you, Janet. She's very good at this as well.
That's all right.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
It really added a lot this time to have Janet's involvement early on.
Yeah.
Janet's been great. We get stuff right back from her, and it's very insightful.
Oh yeah, she's good.
You'll never escape now, Janet. You'll never
escape.
There you go. There you go.
Good thing I like it.
Thanks
Well, we
so
really
much.
appreciate it, Janet, as well.
No worries.
Great.
All right.
Okay. Any other comments on any of the policies?
Good. It feels so good to be getting these up to date. It feels like it's like cleaning out a closet, you know? It just
Yes. Yeah.
so satisfying. Thank you. Yeah, so good.
Great cleaning.
Well, I got to say, while we're kind of celebrating, it was quite the accomplishment when, I don't know if it was Dixon or Dawn, said, well, we thought we'd just bring this forward and see what Dan thought about it. I felt like I had all of a sudden elevated, like we're gonna throw this out and see what we get it past Dan here. So it was quite the
There's
compliment.
going to be a movie called What About Dan?
Yeah. I love it.
Everyone has their role.
It's true. It's a really fun group. Really fun.
Okay, well, with that, I'm going to adjourn us and wish you all a nice evening. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.